Hello everyone, welcome to Motoko Bootcamp. This is our first workshop called Deploy Your First Application in 1 hour. I'm super excited to be here. I hope everyone is doing great. We have a packed agenda today, so I'll jump right into it. What's the plan for today? Oh, first I'll introduce myself so you get to know me a bit more and understand why I'm here today doing this workshop. Then we'll talk about Web3. If you're not familiar with Web3, I'll explain everything you need to know. After that, we will deploy our first application, so this is the most important part of the workshop today. Then we'll talk about the Internet Computer, which is the platform we are going to deploy our application on. I'll explain what it is and what it's being used for. And then if you want to get involved more, I'll explain everything you need to know about Motoko Bootcamp and how you can join us. So, who am I? My name is Sebastian. You've probably already noticed I have a very strong accent. I'm French. And I'm here today because 2 years ago, I took a very important decision. I wanted really hard to get into Web3, and so I decided to quit school and jump into the space. I don't regret my decision. Right now, I'm working at Golden State. We are a Web3 venture studio / accelerator. A venture studio, I was not familiar with this term before, but essentially it's a company that creates other company. So if you are an entrepreneur and you have ideas, you can join Golden State and we help you with money, skills, resource, people, design, marketing, and we give you a lot of help so you can create your own company in Web3. And I'm education lead there, and as part of my role, I have created Motoko Bootcamp, which is a program that helps people get involved in our ecosystem. And I've already helped 200 people join our ecosystem. I hope that you are the next one to join us. My Twitter handle is seb_ICP. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I tweet about the bootcamp, so what kind of projects people are building there, and also everything happening in Web3 in general. All right, enough about me. Why should you care about this presentation? Well, there are 3 reasons for that. The first one, I'm going to talk about a new ecosystem. And like any new ecosystem, there are a lot of opportunities. Of course, opportunities to make money, but also opportunities to find projects, opportunities to make friends, to make good relations, opportunities to find meaningful jobs. There are a lot of opportunities, and this ecosystem has completely changed my life. I'm not the only one. A lot of persons got their life transformed as well. So that's very, very interesting if you want to get involved. There are a lot of opportunities. The second thing is that even if you don't care about those opportunities, what I'm going to talk about is going to impact you in any case, because I'm going to talk about the future of work. And so whether you like it or not, the jobs and the work that we are going to do in the future, they haven't been invented yet. And I'll talk about what's coming next. So I think it's better, to be prepared and to understand where everything is going so that you can have an opinion and get prepared. The last thing is that I really love my job, and I'm not the only one. Usually in Web3, people really like their job because you have this feeling that you're really contributing to pushing society in a good direction. And we have a lot of problems right now. We have poverty, inequalities, education is a big problem. And that's very, very cool to be able to work in a job where you feel that you contribute. And so I'm not saying that Web3 and technology is the solution to everything, but I think it's a good place to be. It's a good ecosystem to try solutions. Okay, let's talk about Web3. So on the left, we have Web2. This is the current stage of the internet. On the right, we have Web3. This is where we're going. So Web2, in Web2, you have 3 categories of personas. You have the users, the investors that own the platform, and the developers that build the platform. I've taken Facebook as an example. Essentially, in Web2, there is an extractive relation between the investors and the users, and also the developers. So there is an extractive relation because the users, they provide value in form of either data, watching time, or any kind of other value that they provide to the platform. And they are just being extracted away. There is no giving back to them. Most of the benefits goes to the investors, and a bit, of course, goes to the developers. Web3 is about owning a piece of an application or owning a piece of the internet. And this doesn't limit the ownership to investors. Everyone is going to be an owner. So in Web3, you are rewarded for contributing to applications or to any kind of network, usually in the forms of tokens. And in Web3, there is a different relation and dynamic between users, developer, and investors. Why? Well, because the difference between those categories is not very clear, because users are also going to be investors by default because they use the platform, they are rewarded, so they own it. Investors usually are also going to be users, and developers are also going to be investors and developers. Not in the sense that everyone is going to be a developer tomorrow. Not everyone will learn how to code, but the code for those applications is open source. So in theory, anyone can contribute. And so the idea is that it's a much more open space, and anyone in theory could contribute to those applications if they have an idea or they have a direction they want to set the platform to. So this is what Web3 is about. And so usually we would stop here and we would only talk about those applications. What I want to talk about today is how Web3 will disrupt every possible industry. So right now, you can look at all those industries. And so maybe you can look at governance, agriculture, education. I don't know where you live, but I'm pretty sure that you can think about 2 or 3 corporations that run the industry that you're looking at. So maybe education or media or telecom in your country. And essentially those corporations, they control the industries. They have most of the workforce, they have most of the resources, and they probably sell all of the goods. Web3 will lead to a disruption of every industries. It has already started with finance. So there is something called decentralized finance. With Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other cryptocurrencies, there is another financial system that is appearing. People are more and more aware of it, and they are more and more into it. And it's already a reality. So it's still very early for finance, but it's already a reality. What is not a reality is the disruption and the decentralization of the rest. And so today I want to talk about why this is not a reality. We have been talking about Web3 for many years. Even before I joined the industry, there was already talks about Web3, but we haven't seen any concrete application except in finance, changing the life of people. And so I want to explain why. And to do that, I want to talk about the beginning of the internet. So, do you remember around 2000, 2005, we had 56K modem, and so essentially our internet connections were very slow. If you wanted to download a song or video, it would take probably hours, even sometimes days. And so the applications that we had access to at this time was mainly text-based services. This is what we usually call Web 1. So essentially a website where you can only read and you cannot interact much, you cannot post content. And depending on where you live, around 2005, 2006, we had access to broadband internet. And this is where we saw an explosion of platforms and interactivity. This is where we had YouTube going mainstream. This is where we had Instagram. This is where we had Twitter and all those rich web applications where you could interact with. I believe that essentially every time there is a revolution in the application, it's possible because there is an underlying technology that makes it possible. So for example, Web 1 was 56K modem and Web 2 was the broadband internet. So what is the underlying technology that makes Web 3 possible? To answer this question, we need to take a look at what built on a blockchain mean. So today you have applications that already promote themselves as being built on a blockchain. And usually what happens is that, let's say you have an application that rewards you for taking walks, and the more you walk, the more token you receive. So you have an application, and of course the token is built on a blockchain, usually Ethereum, but it can also be another ecosystem like Cardano or Solana. And so yes, this token is built on a decentralized infrastructure. But usually the application, so the backend, the front end, the login system, and so on, will be on a centralized infrastructure. So maybe they are using Google Cloud, maybe they are using Amazon Web Services, but essentially they are still using a centralized infrastructure. And so remember that Web3 is about owning a piece of an application. How can you own a piece of an application if your application is built on a centralized infrastructure? Because in that case, your application is really owned by either Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure, and so on. And so today what I want to talk about is what is the next step in crypto? What is the next step in Web3? We had Bitcoin in 2009, major and first step, the first money without a government. We had Ethereum in 2015 with the smart contracts, and so this led to the financial system without banks, and that's already a reality today, even though it's still early, it's a reality. I want to talk about what's next, and what's next is an internet without big tech giants. But I don't want to keep talking about it. I want to show you for real what is possible today. I want to show you an application that is built on the internet computer, and I want you to join me. It's called OpenChat. And so there is a Motoko Bootcamp group. And so if you join OpenChat, you will get to understand what an application fully built on the blockchain means. And for that, I have a challenge for you. So the challenge is pretty simple. You need to deploy your first application on the internet computer. So you will see it's very, very simple. Essentially, you need to go to this GitHub repository. There is the link, and the link will be in the comments as well. Then, once you have deployed your first application, you will receive a code. This code gives you access to OpenChat. You will join and test a real Web3 application, what it looks like. And after that, you will also leave your mark. There is something called the Whale of Fame, where essentially all the students that went through this process of deploying their first application, they can leave a message about what they think about Web3 and if they are excited and what they want to build. So let's go directly on the repository. This is where we have all the indication on what we need to do. Okay, so how are you going to deploy this application? We will use something called Motoko Playground. Motoko Playground is essentially an online coding environment, so you don't need to set up anything, and we will be able to deploy applications for free. There are some limitations that I'll talk about, but essentially you will deploy applications on the internet computer, so on the mainnet, into something called the Playground, which is a free kind of environment where we can deploy. Oh, and by the way, you may be asking yourself, but what is Motoko exactly? We keep talking about it. Motoko is simply a new language that you can use to build Web3 applications. It's very easy to learn and it's very powerful because it compiles to WebAssembly, which is the virtual environment used on the internet computer. All right, so I am on the repository, Motoko Bootcamp / deploy first application. And here you have a complete explanation about what you need to do. You can also read the legend of the Motoko Academy. And so, the ancient secrets of DAOs are about to be revealed to you, but first you need to prove your worth. To gain access to OpenChat, you must first complete and deploy your first application by completing all the tasks in main.mo. Main.mo means main.motoko, so this is a Motoko file that we will need to complete. Only after doing so will the secrets be revealed. How can you get started? Click here to access the playground. So this is the Motoko Playground I was talking about. So this should open an environment where you have two files, demo.mo and main.mo. Write your first line of Motoko by completing the task in main.mo. So you can see here that you have 5 tasks to complete. You can use the code in demo.mo as a reference. So we have already some code that is written for us here. We can use that as a reference. Deploy your first application using the Motoko Playground, get automatically verified and unlock access to our OpenChat room. Leave your mark on the Wall of Fame. Earn 1 ICP if you are fast enough. If you are in a workshop, so if you're watching this on YouTube, this doesn't apply. But if you are watching this during a workshop, I will personally send 1 ICP to the first 5 people to make it into the group. So if you are fast enough, you can make some ICPs. Okay, so let me explain everything that you need to know about Motoko so you can get started and deploy your first application. Okay, so it's important to understand that we have 2 types of variables in Motoko. The first type are the mutable variable, and then we have the immutable variable. The difference is that mutable variable can be reassigned, so you can always change the value of the variable. The immutable variable can never be changed. So you define it once, you set the value, and then you can never change it. The mutable variable are defined with var, and the immutable variable are defined with let. Let me show you how you can define both. Okay, so I'm going to zoom a bit more so the files on the left have disappeared. So let's define immutable variable. And so immutable variable are always defined with let, so let. Then we need the name of the variable. In this case, I'll set the website. In Motoko, variables are typed, so it's very highly recommended that you specify the types of your variables, and that's how you do it. So I'm going to specify type text, and today we will only use this type text. Of course, there are other types like natural numbers, Boolean, array, and so on, but for today we will only use the type text. So this means that I'm defining a website of type text, and then I'm assigning the value, so this will be https motokobootcamp.com. At the end of every variable declaration in Motoko, we need a semicolon, and that's correct. So that's how you define an immutable variable. Then to define a mutable variable, this is the same, but instead of let, we would use a var. So message of type text, again, would be join the Web3 revolution. Okay, so this is how you define an immutable variable, and this is how you define a mutable variable. Okay, so just like we had two types for the variables, we also have two types of functions. The first type are the update functions, the second types are the query function. The update functions, you can use them to write and read, but the query function, you can only read. This is because update functions goes through consensus. So like any other blockchain, the internet computer has a consensus mechanism. So if you use an update function, you need to go through consensus so that all the nodes, all the computers that makes up the network, they come to an agreement on the state of the call. The query are different because they don't need to go to consensus because we are actually not modifying the state, we are just reading. And so that's why the queries are very fast, around 200 milliseconds. The updates, they take a bit more time, so usually around 2 to 3 seconds. Let me show you how you can define an update function and a query function. Okay, so let's say that we want to create a function that returns the value of the message at any point. So we want to see what is the value of the message. Because we only want to see, we will define a query function. And so we need to make this function public so that we can call it from the outside. So public. Then we need to specify it's a query function. Public query func, this is the syntax. Then we need the name of the function, see message. We don't take any arguments, so usually you should put arguments here, but we don't take anyone. And then you need to specify the return type of the value that we return. So we want to return message, which is of type text. So that would look like this return message. You might be wondering why do we have this async? This is because any function that is public is an asynchronous function in Motoko. So I'll explain later what it means. Async await. If you're familiar with JavaScript async await, you already know. Otherwise, there will be a dedicated video for that. So that's how you define a query function. Now, how we would define an update function. So let's say we want to modify the value of the message. This time we need an update function. So update function. We would just define it like this. So set message. We would say new message. So this time we need an argument, which would be the new message. We won't return anything, so we will just use this unit type. Then we would use the reassignment operator. So this is how you reassign the value to message, and we will set it to new message. And we would return, we will just return. So notice that we don't return the value of the message, we just return, and we return nothing. So you might be thinking, why is there a query and not an update here? This is because any function is an update by default. Only if you specify query, it's going to be defined as a query. So by default, update and then query. Okay, so let me zoom out. Now we have everything defined. I'll show you how you can deploy your application. So I am still in demo.emo. And essentially, you go here, you click on deploy. So my canister name. So canister is essentially the name of the container that will contain our application. So on the internet computer, we have this concept of canister. I'll explain later exactly what is a canister, but you can think of it as a container for the application that we are creating. And so click on install. So you have a few parameters, but we don't really need to care at this point. And then this will compile your code. So WASM means WebAssembly. This is creating a WebAssembly module based on the code that is here. Then it's finding a canister ID, so a container for our application, and then it's installing the WebAssembly module inside. Whenever our application is deployed, we have this Candid UI. So the Candid UI, we can click here on the top right, and it opens a new window. So this is basically the same. We could use it from here, but this is a bigger screen. Essentially, this is a visual interface to interact with your canister. So you can see that we have two public functions, see message and set message. And so we can interact with it from the Candid UI. So I'll click here. I'll see that the message is join the web revolution as expected. And I'll set a new message. So hello world. As you can see, the query function is very fast, whereas the update function took a bit more time. And now we should have the new message. So hello world. So that's it about the Candid UI. Now, based on the code that I've created here, you should be able to go to main.mo and complete the task. And once you're done, click on deploy, and then you will need to test your application. So good luck. I'll see you in a few moments. So at this point, you should pause the video and try to deploy your first application. All right, so I will assume that you have deployed your application. This is what your Candid UI should look like. And so here we can get the message. So it should be hello world. You can see your name, and then you can set a message. And so before you click on test, think about the message that you want to set, because this message will be stored forever here on the whale of fame, where all the students that goes through this deployment, they can store one message. So think about it. For me, I will set this one. And so we can verify once it's done. Let's see. Okay, looks like it's good. And now you can click on test. This is going to test your application if you have the correct functions. So it might take around 10 to 20 seconds, depending on where and when you do the test. Then you should see the link to join OpenChat. And you should also see your name appear here. So you can refresh. And then you can see your name. Okay, so now you might be thinking, what did we just do? What happened? So we just deployed our first application on the internet computer, and then we went into an application called OpenChat that is also deployed on the internet computer, the backend, the front end, the images, the login system, and so on. So the internet computer, the goal is to create a place on the internet where you can deploy applications and you don't have to rely on one big tech companies. So of course, you need to trust the code, you need to trust the protocol, you need to trust cryptography, mathematics. But just like Bitcoin and Ethereum did, they create those trustless system where you can build applications on top of it. The internet computer is a decentralized cloud where you can build applications without having to trust Microsoft or Apple and so on. So the primitive of Bitcoin was the coin itself. So we use the money. The primitive of Ethereum was the smart contracts. So that's how developers built mainly decentralized finance, build a financial system that exists today that we can use. And now the internet computer introduces a new primitive, which is called a canister. So that's what you can see. And essentially, a canister is a decentralized server. So everything that you can do with a traditional server, like you can serve browser directly, you can store files, you can process any kind of computations, you can store up to 100 gigabytes of file within one canister. You can do everything that you can do with a traditional server, but it's a decentralized one. And so just like you could do with other servers, you could build social media applications, games, and so on. With canisters, you are not limited. You can, if you think about something that you want to build in a decentralized manner, you can do it. So this is making Web3 a reality, because now the whole idea of Web3, as we said, is about owning a piece of an application. And so now we have an infrastructure that we can own, and we have an application that we can own. How does it work? It's very simple. Think that your application, so for example, let's take OpenChat. OpenChat is a good example because this is actually the first application that was controlled by a DAO. And so the DAO is actually just another set of canisters that is deployed. And those canisters are controlling other types of canisters. So imagine that your application is deployed within one canister. This canister can only be updated, so the code can only be upgraded if the DAO approves the change. And the code is fully public. Whenever the DAO wants to change it, they have to go through a public proposal. They have to make everything very transparent and very clear. And so essentially all the token holders of OpenChat, they will vote, and if they accept the modifications or not. They can also vote on anything. If they want to change the state of the canister, they can vote. And essentially they control the whole application. They don't control just the token, they actually directly control the application itself. So I call this co-owned software, and co-owned software is to Web3 what the combustion engine was to cars. Of course, there was a lot of cars and experimentation before the combustion engine, but this is really when you get this new technology that you can mass scale, that you get the car revolution, and the Web3 revolution is going to be the same. Now let's talk about DAOs, because I've mentioned here that essentially those applications are controlled by DAOs, but what is a DAO exactly? So a DAO, and there are a lot of different definitions. This one is pretty simple. A DAO is an organization where people work together, they use transparent rules, and no one is in charge. Essentially, they use smart contracts, blockchain, canisters, all those trustless technologies to organize themselves as a group. And they vote on things, they decide to allocate money and resource to different things. But there is no one person in charge, and it's essentially a replacement for traditional companies or maybe other types of organizations. Like it can be a replacement maybe for nations, it can be a replacement for traditional association. It's a new type of organization that is digital. I have a prediction. I believe that if you're watching this video, in the next 10 years, you will either have created, if you join the bootcamp, you will create your DAO, participated, or work for a DAO. And you might be thinking that it's a huge prediction, but actually it's not, because there will be DAOs about everything. There will be DAOs about agriculture, there will be DAOs about improving science, improving education, DAOs to make investment as a group, DAOs to create energy. There will be DAOs for absolutely everything in every sector. As I said before, Web3 is about to disrupt every industry. And so there is necessarily one of those sectors that you will be attracted to and where you will probably work for this DAO. Essentially, we have a new form of software. This software cannot be corrupted, is accessible to everyone, anywhere, can be audited, and is fully transparent because the code is open source. Also, the fact that it's open source enables a lot of innovation and interoperability between different pieces of software. There is no middleman, and this software can be co-owned and also is collaborative. And I believe that this software will absolutely redefine how society works. Why does it matter? Because this is the future of work. This is not only the future of the digital work, but the general organization of the work. And DAOs are really in the core of all of this. Just like internet made knowledge accessible to all, DAOs will make opportunities accessible to all. So DAOs are much more flexible and much more scalable organizations. And maybe today there is something that you want to do, something that you want to build, but you don't have the connections, you don't live in the right place, you don't have access to capitals, you don't have access to the right corporation. And so you're thinking, I cannot build or I cannot create what I want. With DAOs, there won't be any limits because DAOs will be global. And so if you have an idea, if you have something you want to create as a group, if you're looking for capital or resource or other people to work with, DAOs will make an opportunity accessible to you. So this is why we are focusing the bootcamp on DAOs. The problem right now, we haven't seen a lot of DAOs because DAOs have a lot of problems. The main one is that right now, most of the DAOs, they rely on centralized tools. So for example, maybe GitHub or Instagram, and those tools are controlled by big corporations. And they have a lot of problems. The first one would be they extract value. They have a lot of privacy issues, and they are not transparent. But remember that we said that a DAO is supposed to be a transparent organization. We said it here. They use transparent rules. And so essentially, if a DAO today relies on software that is not open source and controlled by a company, essentially they are putting a part of their workflow and a part of their trust in the hands of those companies. And so that goes against the ethos of a DAO, which is to be a transparent organization. That's why I believe that once we fix this problem of centralized software, DAOs will be able to thrive. So it goes like this. We have co-owned and transparent software, which is the case, and it's going to only keep on growing. And then DAOs are able to use it, and they are able to thrive. And as I said, DAOs will change how we work and will lead to a major reorganization of the world. This is not a revolution like the French Revolution, where you would go and kill a king. What I say by Web3 revolution is really just a technological transformation. And that's also why it's so powerful, because it's just something that happens naturally. This is a very exciting future, I believe. If you want to learn more and be part of this future, we are doing one bootcamp every month. It's called Motoko Bootcamp. We are doing it online. We also have physical events if you're interested, and this is completely free. The idea is that you have 7 days to build a DAO, and you join us and we brainstorm, we give you resource. We have a lot of things for you. We have speakers from the Web3 industry that will come and talk about what they're building. We have contact with a recruiting agency and an accelerator. We have brainstorming sessions where we discuss the future of DAOs and how we could use them to change how we live. You have projects that you have to build. So those are guided projects where we will help you. And of course, you have access to lectures and videos and resources and all sorts of things on Motoko. So if you are interested, register on motokobootcamp.com. You have a list of bootcamp. You just need to register for the kickoff ceremony, and everything will be explained there. So yeah, how you can take advantage of the week and so on. Now I will answer a few questions about the bootcamp. I've seen people asking usually the same questions, so I'll show you a list of questions and answer all of them one by one. Okay, so those are some frequent questions that we have about Motoko Bootcamp. The first one is, who can attend? Are there any pre-criteria? And so, of course, Motoko Bootcamp is a coding bootcamp, and so it's recommended for technical profiles that already have coding experience. So if you are familiar with JavaScript or Python or other languages, you will be very at ease. But I want to say that everyone is welcome to give it a shot. We had previous experience with students that had no coding experience, and they actually learned a lot, and they really enjoyed the program. So if you're curious about Web3 and DAOs and what I'm talking about, don't let the fear of coding prevent you from joining the program. How is the week structured? How much time should I dedicate? So during the 7 days of the bootcamp, you will work on a self-paced project. So there will be projects that are self-paced and self-guided. So you will be able to organize your calendar as you want. But there will also be sessions that are streamed live. So you will need to join at specific times. And so I can show you, for example, for the next bootcamp. So this is the one from November 20 to 26. So maybe you're watching this video later and it's already too late, but usually the next bootcamp should be fairly similar. And we have sessions every day. So for example, we have the welcome session here. Then we have some mentorship session. We have some collaborative coding session. And so if you miss some of those sessions, it's not too bad because they will be recorded. But for example, the collaborative brainstorm, you don't want to miss it because once it's missed, it's too late. So we recommend that you take a look at the calendar, and the link will be in the description. And so you arrange your week so that you have as much free time as possible and you are able to follow the lessons. Usually we recommend at least 4 or 5 hours per day so that you can fully benefit from the experience. Is Motoko Bootcamp happening in person? Actually, let me zoom. Is Motoko Bootcamp happening in person? So the program can be followed 100% online. This is one of our promises. You don't need to join us, but of course, if you want to meet us and meet the team and make connections, we usually host physical events. The previous one happened in Lisbon, then in Madrid, and we are moving across Europe, and we are planning to go abroad, to go beyond that. So check our calendar to see if there is one event near your city. And also, if you want to see us coming to your city, make sure to drop me a DM. So, Motoko Bootcamp happening in person, yes, you can still follow online, but if you want to join us, it's possible. Do you have different languages than Motoko? So we are working on the Rust, TypeScript, and Python editions for this program. But I really want to say you shouldn't let the fear of learning a new language stopping you, because actually most of what you're going to learn is very, very general and very related to Web3 and the internet computer more than specific to Motoko. Also, Motoko is really, really easy to pick up. If you're an experienced developer, you will probably need 1 or 2 days and then you will be up and running. So yeah, don't think that this is going to be only about learning a strange language and that you won't learn other things. Why is this free? What is the catch? So we are a venture studio dedicated to the internet computer and the ICP ecosystem, and our goal is very clear. We want to grow this ecosystem. That's why we believe that education is the most efficient tool to do that. And so we are doing the bootcamp for free. It's only 7 days, it's online, and so it's actually the best way for us to grow the ecosystem and meet more builders. Also, we are a venture studio, and so we are always looking for new entrepreneurs to join us. And Motoko Bootcamp is an incredible opportunity for us to meet talented people. So that's why the program is free. How should I join? What are the useful links? So simply register for the kickoff ceremony. I can show you how to do that. So you can go on our website, then you click on register here. And then, so this is the start session. This is the kickoff ceremony where I will explain everything. You will explain how the week is structured, which resource and projects you have access to, and how you can maximize your week. So just register here, make sure to be on time, and everything will be clear during the kickoff ceremony. For the rest, make sure to join our Discord, so the link will be in the description, and make sure to, again, check the calendar and arrange your week to have as much free time as possible. All right, so that's it for today. I hope to see you in the next bootcamp, and in the meantime, keep building.